Life can change in an instant. For many wheelchair users, the struggle to push forward is a daily challenge.
After years of development and countless prototypes, we created Rib Grips, the revolutionary wheelchair hand rim covers with built-in ribs for ultimate grip and comfort.
No more slick surfaces, no more heat burns, just pure, reliable grip. Rib Grips, empowering you to push forward with ease. Rib Grips, get a grip on your freedom. Discover the difference. Visit ribgrips.com and use promo code GRIP today. You just found the perfect product that helps with staying cool during hot summer runs. No more gross warm water. Stay cool with this product from Gehrhardt. This hydration tube cover helps keep your water cool and easily accessible. Stay hydrated during those long summer runs or even delay from freezing in the winter. Plus, they're compatible with various brands of water bladders and come in various colors. Visit Gehrhardt.com and use promo code H2O today.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to this episode of A Visit to the Mound. I'm Lark Smith, and he is
Stan Huff.
Our special guest today is Rusty Gerhardt. He was drafted in 1972 and pitched in the Padres organization, but the majority of his major league experience has been as a scout. Rusty, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
The major league draft is happening this week, and I have a couple of questions about that before Stan gets into some of the scouting part of baseball. During the draft, are scouts like you on standby on the phone just prior to each pick for your team to give some insight on players that might be available at that particular pick?
Absolutely. They're either in a draft room or they're on the phone live with their scouting director and the other front office personnel.
Okay. Well, after the second or maybe the third round, is the talent pool essentially equal and teams are just taking players to fill out minor league rosters?
Possibly. It depends on each organization's needs, but I believe that every player that is drafted was reported on as a major league prospect when their name is called by an organization.
No, I understand that. They can't draft like an A-ball or rookie league player. They've got to see him in a major league uniform, correct?
Exactly.
Just
I have reported on a lot of players over the years. I retired a few years ago, but when I was working for 28 years, 30 years with the Major League Scouting Bureau, I worked for all 30 clubs, and when I reported on a player, he had at least two major league tools, in my opinion. Now, my job was to locate, identify, and report on players I thought had major league tools, and was telling whoever was reading my report that scouts with individual teams would go see them and make up their own mind as to whether they agreed with me or possibly that player didn't fit their profile as a player in their organization. So it was just a matter of opinion, and scouting is like beauty is in the eye of the beer holder, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, Rusty. All right, so you turn in a player. Do they call you about it? And let me ask you this as well: is the scouting bureau still going?
No, not as it was when I was hired in 1989.
Right,
no,
I understand.
Not at all. Yeah.
So every organization has their own scouts now. Is that how that's where it is?
Well, they always did. But without going into too much detail, the Major League Scouting Bureau was formed to save money and to save time for individual team scouts because they had much larger much larger areas to cover. Now, as a Major League baseball scouting bureau scout for the bureau, I had Texas. That's like 8 states in the Northeast.
Yeah, it is.
So my area was a lot larger, and I had to form a group of network, so to speak, people I could rely on to possibly call someone in West Texas, in Midland, in Andrews, Texas, or Lubbock, so to speak, and
Right.
And rely on them to say, hey, I haven't seen anybody out here this year that you might want to drive out to see. So, you kind of build those relationships. I had a relationship with a high school coach in Andrews, Texas for many years. Joe Ray Halsey became a good friend. He saved me a lot of miles, and he was a good baseball man. He grew up playing baseball, played in college. So guys like him, there were many that I grew to know and rely on that helped me in saving miles. And you just had to show up at the right park at the right time. And I was blessed, I think, with good instruction by people that were mentors to me. Jim Walton was one of those longtime baseball men who kind of tutored me to. I was on the field for almost 20 years as a player and a manager and an instructor.
Yeah,
and
I played against you. We played
Yeah.
against each other in 77 and 78. You were
Oh, okay.
at Amarillo,
Okay.
and I was at Jackson.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry I didn't remember that, but you were with the Mets organization, I guess.
That's true, yes.
Yeah, okay.
A player that is draft eligible, by the time he's draft eligible from a particular organization, how many different scouts may have evaluated his talent?
Oh, as many as possible. I mean, they have area scouts from other areas see them in. If he's a college player, they'll have that area where that tournament's being played. They'll have that area scout and try and get as many opinions as possible. And then cross-checkers, if the numbers stay up, the cross-checkers come in. And if it's a guy that they like, that opinion of those many kind of cross-check each other. And if the numbers stay up, then that's the guy they take. I mean, it's a matter of who likes a guy and for what reason.
And if he's really a good talent, he's not only being inundated by that number of scouts from one team, but that number of scouts from maybe 5 or 6 or 8 teams.
Absolutely. And, loose lips sink ships. You work with another organization, you don't want to let anybody know how much you like that guy.
Right.
And that would determine that. All that does is cost the organization money. They have to take them sooner than. And that's why for many, many years, players were overdrafted, possibly over-evaluated, because as an organization scout, you had to get your numbers up if you liked the guy. You maybe over-evaluated him a little bit so that you could get him, you could sign him, you could get him into your organization. And, you work for a team, you want your name on that guy because you did the work. You liked him. You want to see him in the big leagues, helping your team win.
I played with a couple of number one picks that I didn't think they were anywhere close to number one, but it got to a point where
I did too.
So many people, it became obvious. So many people had put their name on this guy. It didn't matter if he was hitting 200 or 300. He was going to the big leagues.
They got a lot of looks, didn't they?
Yeah, sure did. And the guy couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. But that's he got to the big leagues hitting 200.
Yeah, could that explain, kind of what people might look back at the movie Moneyball and explain why Billy Beane didn't, pan out like the scouts thought to, and why Billy Beane, basically went through the Moneyball route to where he wasn't necessarily listening to the scouts?
That is well known by now. Obviously, that's how he was. But that sixth tool, like we used to call it, that's hard to put a number on. And you really, if you're not ready as an 18, 19-year-old coming out of high school, if you're not ready to go live baseball every day and be on a bus or on a plane and in a locker room with a bunch of people that you don't know, that may be from another country that don't speak English, it's hard. It's hard to fit in. And a lot of guys aren't ready to do that.
Yeah, it's a maturity deal, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always, at least in recent years, since I've been retired, I've worked with some high school kids. I always tell the dad, if you don't get taken in the first, second, or third round, go to school, get your education, give yourself a chance to mature, and learn the game and grow physically, and it just makes more sense. And that's why a lot of people were pushing for many years to let the colleges, develop the talent instead of putting money into minor league organizations and letting the minor league baseball organization.
Well, there are some organizations they play that way. I mean, they won't draft a player, let the college develop them for another 2 to 4 years.
Yes. You have, now that everything's so data driven, I think they have more information if they see him playing college for another 3 years or 4 years, and they have more data to reinforce their decision that this is the guy we want.
Exactly. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, when we worked together with the Rangers, we had to do reports on our own players, but I do remember we had to do evaluations on the players we saw on the other teams. That was when I was there, and they asked me to do that. They only said, we only want the guy that you think's a prospect. When I was with the Astros, we had to write up every ball player we saw, and that was tough.
I did too. With the Padres, when I was managing that, I had to make those reports out also for every player in your league.
You talking about doubling down and the job you had to do plus all of that. Wow.
Yeah, and that's a lot of work for a guy making what was it? Maybe 16,000.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. You guys were underpaid for all the stuff you were having to do.
Yeah, well, it was that way for a long time. Yeah.
But you did it because you loved the game.
That was the reason I got into it.
Same here.
And stayed in it. Yeah.
Me too. Definitely. Yeah. Travel. Now, you travel by car or plane or depending on where you went?
Yes. Most of the time I drove. And, when the draft was over, we did a lot of tryout camps working with the Major League Scouting Bureau, and we put them on for all 30 Major League teams. And before Showcase Baseball, that was where we identified the high school talent mostly. And a lot of guys that got passed over in college would show up because it was an open camp. It didn't cost anything. And we put them through their tool evaluation. We graded everything. And then we made a cut, picked a team, and we played a game in a trial camp.
Right.
And, I'm sure you did a lot of those trial camps. Maybe went to a couple as an amateur player. It makes you realize you look around and see some guys that are doing some things really, really good, and it kind of pushes you, and it makes you step it up a notch, maybe.
Oh,
and
kinda.
Yeah. And if it's in there as a guy who put on over 200 tryout camps over the years, you saw it at those venues. And, it was actually taught me how to scout. That's where I learned how to evaluate.
Wow.
And, you grade out the arms, you watch them swing the bat, you time them, you watch them run, watch them hit, see what kind of power they have. And in the game situation, you really see who's competitive and who just has tools. So,
right.
You mentioned Showcase Baseball. How many different quote quote organizations are there? I know that there's like the area code games, there's Perfect Game. How much has that exploded recently?
Oh my gosh! The battle now is trying to educate parents into not running up their credit card and getting your kid to all these showcases.
Yeah.
And, it's just ridiculous, I think. And guys like Jeff Fry, who was a longtime player, and he was an agent for a while after he played in the big leagues. He is trying to educate parents into these things and wants them to realize that it's not rocket science. I mean, you want to be a baseball player, you got to play every day. You got to throw. And you don't have to pitch off a mound every day to learn how to pitch. I take a lot of pride in when I was a pitching coach and a manager that I had very, very few guys go down with sore arms. I had them throw every day, not necessarily off a mound, but they threw. I mean, that's how I learned how to and gain strength with arm strength and learned how to pitch. I mean, you experiment with grips and you play catch every day. And, it's just watching these guys take running starts and throw into a screen with a radar gun behind them is not my idea of pitching. I mean, it just, and it does relate to a lot of injuries. And everybody's wondering why there's so many arm surgeries.
That's true.
You don't have to be a brain surgeon to figure that out either.
I don't remember Nolan Ryan ever having Tommy John surgery, but he had that workout routine that made him, the top athlete that he could be.
So I witnessed it.
Yeah.
I witnessed that. He outworked everybody and outran everybody and lifted everybody, outstretched everybody.
Well, no doubt. He was different. He was unique. And those guys, they come along, Steve Carlton, Tom Seaver, any guys you want to mention that pitch for a long time. And the ones in the game now that have done that. But you don't limit them necessarily. At least I did early in the season. I'd let them work out of jams and then protected them as the season went on. And it's common sense if you're a baseball guy, because you learn those things.
That's true.
Over the years.
A lot of the parents seem to think that if they practice well, they're going to do well in the game. And I told them, I said, you're going to find out how good he is when he starts competing, because everybody else is competing. Now, if he can stand in there and compete with the bat, or stand in there and compete throwing strikes, you got something going. But until that time, you got to lay off. I mean, practice that's a need. You have to do it. Mm-hmm. But the practice part and the competition part are definitely different.
Sure.
That's like these 5 o'clock hitters. When I was with the Yankees, they had drafted an 18-year-old. It's like a white Darryl Strawberry. I mean, he lit it up in batting practice. When we got in the game, he struck out. And I thought, what are you going to do with this? This guy's the number one pick.
You got to live with it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just detailed and I evaluated what I saw, Anyway, that was a story for another day.
Yeah.
Well, listen.
We all have those stories that did that job, Stanley, and we don't have enough time to go into all of them. That's for sure. But it's Practice is something that builds muscle memory, and so that once you get in an environment where you have to compete at a high level, you rely on what you've done previously, and it just becomes muscle memory, and talent shows, and
the will
success.
to do it.
Yeah, success, breeds that confidence. So it's a way that I think you see in the game now. It's more of a me, look at me type game, and it's a show, and it's hard to watch for a guy that's been playing since 1957. But I just really and the playoffs are maybe a little different because you see the guys that execute and the teams that do that, and they're the ones that show up in the playoffs.
Right.
And that's why the Rangers won last year.
Well, that's true.
So,
well, Rusty, listen, we do appreciate your time today and your insight, your experience and knowledge. And definitely, I'm glad we could have you on.
Well, I appreciate you thinking of me because a lot of baseball guys don't call anymore.
well, this one did.
Yeah, you do, and I appreciate it, man. I appreciate your friendship, and Mike, when did you play in Jackson? 77?
77, 78.
Yeah. All right. I remember those days.
I think Glenn.
That's when I was bouncing my fastball.
Glenn Ezel was your manager one of those years.
78 for a little while, and then I took over in 79 when he got hurt. Yeah, he had heart surgery.
Yes,
stuff.
I remember that. Anyway,
but well, you guys take care, and I appreciate you thinking of me, and I enjoy talking baseball. Always have. So.
That's our time for this episode of A Visit to the Mound. Many thanks to our special guest, Rusty Gerhardt. If you have any questions or comments, anything you would like for us to cover, we would love to hear from you. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A Visit to the Mound, or on our website at avisittothemound.com. Make sure you like, subscribe, and review this podcast, and be listening the next time we make a visit to the mound. That'll wrap up this Visit to the Mound. We certainly appreciate you joining us today for a little baseball talk. Anytime you want to hear something about baseball, you can find us anywhere you get your podcast, or you can go to roguemedianetwork.com for the next edition of A Visit to the Mound.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production. Are you a podcaster? Let's talk podcast hosting. Are you tired of your current podcast host? Need real support in a community that gets it? At Rogue Media Network, we offer top-tier podcast hosting services to help you thrive. From hosting and distribution to dedicated support, we've got you covered. Starting as low as $25 a month. Join our community of passionate podcasters today. Contact us at hello@roguemedianetwork.com.